Welcome to the Overstock Academy weekly podcast, where we talk about finding name brand store Overstock products and reselling them online in places such as eBay, Amazon, Shopify, and even your own website. Now, the Overstock industry is a $127 billion a year industry. All of the products are the same highly profitable name brands that you know and trust, which basically means that if you do it right, they almost sell themselves. And the do it right part is what this podcast is all about. Today, I have a story for you about my $900 rookie mistake. Now, as soon as I realized what had happened, I hung up the phone and the first words out of my mouth were, "Oh my gosh, babe, I just made a huge mistake." My mistake had just cost me $900. To get this latest order for my online Overstock reselling business, I used our credit cards, which were maxed out already, and I had already tapped out family members who I could borrow from. I thought that this inventory purchase was a risk worth taking, and I was confident that it was going to pay off handsomely. But when I got that unexpected shipping bill, I was definitely thinking twice. Now, at this point, I would rather walk on hot coals than go back and ask for more help from my family. All of our savings had been poured into this inventory purchase. Now, in just a few hours, there would be a shipper at my doorstep with an unexpected $900 bill that was due on delivery. How the hell did I get myself into this mess? Now, let me give you some more background. I had been selling Overstock products online for a while, basically smaller lots with smaller quantities that came in what was called case pack boxes. Now, this means that when they were shipped to me by my vendor, they would be delivered by either FedEx, UPS, or USPS ground service. Now, at times, there were multiple boxes per order, and at other times, it was just a single box. I was lucky enough to have a pretty awesome sales rep through my vendor. He was a great mentor to me as I was starting out, and which most people in this business have to learn almost everything the hard way. Also, my vendor had a pretty good sense of my business. He knew what products I preferred, what my quantity limits were, and what channels that I used to sell on. One thing you'll notice is that most people in the Overstock industry will not take the time to hold your hand and show you the ropes. To be entirely transparent, I was the same way until I recently sold my business. There's a lot of money to be made and a ton of products to move. So when you ask people for help, they're like, I don't have time for that, especially the people who are truly making money doing this. And most of the noise in this industry comes from people who either have had no success or have little to no experience actually walking the walk. But boy, are they good at talking the talk, right? Now, the thing is when I'm looking to learn anything, I want to learn from someone who is better than I am. Otherwise, it's a case of the blind leading the blind. Now, having been scammed and misled before and losing a lot of money, my radar is very sensitive to BS. And as soon as I detect it, I'm out. But back to my story. So I was having relative success at the time, and I was feeling pretty confident. That's red cocky. I was making an absolute killing on one particular model of Sony wireless headphones. I was paying about $45 each that was delivered, and they were retailing for $149 brand new. I was selling mine for $139, and they were selling as fast as I was listing them. The only downside was that my vendor never seemed to have enough case lots in stock. In fact, whenever they did, I didn't even let them post them on their website. I instructed my rep to call me as soon as possible, and then I basically bought everything that was available. And at those profit margins, I'm sure you would do the same. Now let's fast forward to that fateful night when everything changed. So there I was, sitting on the computer browsing my vendor's website. And what do I see? I see a boatload of my headphones. Did you notice they're mine now? I mean, there were easily over 150 pieces, and they were in lots of 50 each. It was 1 a.m. local time, and I impulsively reached for my phone to call my awesome sales rep. Would he even be up at this time? Oh, probably not, but I did put down my phone before I dialed. Even though I had put my phone down, my mind was still racing. Was my rep holding out on me? I thought we were cool. That's when I saw the worst part of this betrayal. The headphones were selling at an average price of $36 per piece before shipping. What? Was he holding out and marking up the price too? Now I was fuming. I wasn't even going to wait for the morning to talk to him. I needed to jump on this now. So after checking how much money I had in my business account, I went ahead and bought a 50-piece lot. And the next day was Friday, so I decided to raise some more money to buy another lot of 50. That evening, I received an email notification that my first lot had shipped out. And by Saturday night, between putting my inventory on sale and using credit cards and borrowing money from family, I had wrangled up enough for that second 50-piece lot. I was still pretty pissed at my rep, wondering why I hadn't heard from him at all. I was shaking my fist in the air. I vowed to give him a piece of my mind when I eventually did hear from him. Now, normally with my smaller packages, I either paid for shipping on delivery or have them billed to my FedEx account. I don't know if you've noticed, but through all of this, I hadn't accounted for my shipping cost yet. Now stick with me, I'm about to learn a very important lesson, spelled C-O-S-T-L-Y lesson. Hopefully you can listen to this and avoid the lesson too. Now on Monday afternoon, I get another email confirmation. This one stated that my second lot had shipped out and that I should, quote, expect a call from the shipper within 24 hours to schedule a delivery. Now that was clue number one that something was off. You see, I never needed a call to confirm or to schedule anything before. I would normally just get an email with tracking numbers. But you know how the mind works when it's racing with excitement and anger all wrapped together? I was probably like la-di-da and didn't pay much attention to it. I brushed it aside and simply went about business as usual. Now finally that evening, my rep calls me and I answer. I could not wait to hear what this guy had to say for himself. First, he explains to me that he was off on Friday, which I'm thinking to myself, cry me a river, whatever. Then, sounding rather surprised, he asks, did you place a huge order for 50 of those Sony headphones you like? And I answer coolly, yeah, more like 2 orders. I'm shocked you didn't call me about this, or were you saving them for someone else? I know. I was ready to draw blood and my claws were out. He says, you realize those were pallet lots, not case lots, right? Then you could hear crickets. I became so silent. He says, hello, Amy, are you still there? I may as well have been gagged and blindfolded and thrown into a dungeon. I was in shock about where my cockiness and rashness had landed me. Overstock Nation, it was time for a mega-size helping of good old humble pie that only a business mistake can serve you. And mine was nice and cold. Now allow me to explain what dawned on me over the next 10 minutes. How my vendor operated was this. They would receive their inventory by the pallet in truckloads, and every day they were receiving 7 to 10 truckloads, every single day. First, they would immediately attempt to sell them by the truckload. Then whatever was left, they would sell by the pallet lots. Now, when the vendor couldn't sell by the truckload or the pallet lots within a specific period, they would then break the pallets down into case lots. And at this time, I was buying case lots. Now, keep in mind, because they had to pay their employees to do this, they marked up the unit price on case lots to cover their costs, which makes sense, right? Now, this is why the 50-piece lot I had impulsively purchased had lower price per unit cost. I was purchasing a pallet, not a case. Boy, was I feeling like a jerk, but wait, it got worse. Secondly, since I had purchased goods that were on a pallet, they were not being shipped via FedEx Ground. They were using a third-party freight shipper on an 18-wheeler semi-truck. Now, FYI, my driveway didn't have a loading or delivery dock. I didn't own a forklift or a pallet jack at the time. This meant the truck shipping my items had to have a Liftgate. Now, I know that I'm using some industry terminology here, but if you go to the episode notes at overstockacademypodcast.com/109, I posted pictures of all of these things that I'm talking about. Using a Liftgate came with a $200 fee from the shipper. And oh yeah, I was in a residential location, and freight shippers charge an extra $250 for a residential delivery. And hold on, these were cost per shipment, meaning for each shipment, I would be paying $450 in addition to the regular shipping fee of $286 per order. I had just cost my business an unexpected additional $900, which I didn't have. I was on the verge of tears. I mean, what the heck had I done? Now, the shipper had already picked up the pallet, so there was no canceling the order. Not only was my cost per item significantly higher, but I didn't even have the means to unload, let alone move the inventory into my garage. Plus, an 18-wheeler truck in my neighborhood with nosy neighbors and all? I can see it now. My husband and I hauling headphones back and forth from the edge of our driveway into the garage, which was already stuffed full of boxes. We'd be covered in sweat from running back and forth in the sweltering Florida heat. The whole time we're unloading the shipment, our nosy retired neighbor Mitch would be sitting on his porch yelling to his wife, "Marlene, turn that TV off and get the iced tea. Come out here, these crazy kids are at it again." Yikes. It was time to bite the bullet and have a conversation with my husband. It was time to explain to him the disaster I had just created. Now, if you have been listening to me a while, you know that my husband is a hopeless optimist. I mean, he finds positive aspects in almost any situation. But even knowing that, I must admit that I was kind of freaking out. And not because I was afraid of a negative reaction from him, but because what I did was pretty dumb. I mean, even I couldn't believe that I had done that. Now, after a long and difficult conversation, his final response was, "Well, babe, I guess we're buying pallet lots from now on." See, while most people would have been scarred for life after accidentally ordering pallet lots instead of small cases, we decided this was just a lesson in building a better system so we could expand. By the way, we knew figuring out how to make this work wouldn't be easy. We also knew that the profit margin for pallet lots would be great. We did have big dreams for our business and bigger than just small case lots. We also had young mouths to feed, and we knew stepping up our game was the most logical next step. Now, my new challenge was finding a system that allowed me to buy pallet lots and improve my profit margins. I'll cut to the chase and explain the solution that I came up with. And this little trick saved me over $400 per shipment. First off, though, for all of this to make sense, allow me to illustrate how freight goods travel to you. In the episode notes at overstockacademypodcast.com/109, you can get a free PDF version of this guide that contains a graphic about what I'm going to explain. Just tell us where to send it and then check your inbox. Okay, so from the retail store, unsold merchandise goes back to the vendor's warehouse or distribution center. Once you make a purchase, the shipper picks up the goods and takes them back to their freight dispatch terminal. It's then loaded onto a truck and sometimes even a train that transports it to a shipper's receiving terminal that is closest to your location. The goods are then loaded onto another truck that delivers your products to your location, your home, or your mailbox. Now, if you are purchasing a full truckload like I eventually did, some of the steps above may be skipped and the vendor may ship the full load directly to your doorstep. In this industry, it's easy to make a lot of money by purchasing smaller lots. However, my aspiration for you is to someday purchase full truckloads, because that is when you're going to go from cooking with firewood to cooking with gas, and the profit margins are insane. Now, next I'm going to share with you step by step how to avoid burning $400 per freight shipment. Now, before I dive in, I realize that most of you are listening while you're doing other things. Maybe you're at the gym, at work, maybe you're driving or even running. So don't worry about remembering all of this. The full PDF version of this guide can be downloaded at overstockacademypodcast.com/109, and it's free. So please make sure you get it and use it. Now, step one is once you have completed your order with the vendor, you will want to find out how many pallets will your order include. You will want to ask the vendor what the shipping quote would be to have the item sent to your direct location. Now, as with my wake-up call in the example I just gave you, There is a residential delivery fee that's usually $200 or more, as well as an additional Liftgate fee of $200 or more. So these two fees alone can increase your shipping bill by between $400 to $500. The second step is, if you are receiving inventory to a residential address, ask the shipper where the closest freight shipping terminal to you is located. The local terminal is where the goods will arrive right before they're being delivered to your location. The third step is, tell the shipper that you would like to pick up your shipment at the terminal rather than having them delivered to your house. The beauty is that at the terminal, they have a loading dock, a forklift, and a pallet jack to move the pallets around. You can either track your shipments and be at the terminal when they arrive, or you can set everything up so you receive a phone call when your items arrive. Now, step 4, it's most ideal if you have a truck or a larger vehicle to pick up your large order of items. However, if your vehicle isn't big enough to transport the items from the terminal, don't worry. My little sedan wasn't that big, plus I had this humongous flowery pink car seat in the back, and neither was my husband's little Toyota Matrix hatchback. So here's what I did. I went to a local Home Depot and rented one of those $19 per hour pickup trucks. We picked up our merchandise, hauled it home, unloaded it quickly, returned the truck, and that was that. If you don't own a truck or a van and you can't borrow one from a friend, you do have options. Option 1, Home Depot has the truck rentals and they average about $19 per hour. Option 2 is what's called Enterprise Truck Rental. They average about $59 per day. You also have U-Haul Truck and Trailer Rental. They are also $19 on average per hour. Now, those prices are subject to change, so please don't quote me on them. Now, also investing in a trailer may be a long-term goal to keep in mind. This is going to eliminate the ongoing rental cost. If you're going to do this on the regular, this is something you definitely want to think about. You can find them on your local Craigslist for affordable prices, and to be honest, even buying trailers brand new are still pretty affordable. All right, so here's a couple pro tips for you. 1, the shipper will hold your products for a limited time while you organize transportation. The agents at the terminal will load a pallet onto a pickup truck using their own forklift. If you are receiving your inventory at a commercial location that does not have a loading dock, like your 9-to-5 or a storefront, you will have a fee for a Liftgate. And if your order has a small number of items, you may be able to jump onto the back of the driver's truck and quickly break down your pallets by handing them to someone standing on the ground. And that way you can avoid the Liftgate fee altogether. But just an FYI, do not count on the truck driver helping you in any way, okay? He will gladly watch you sweat your ass off while perched on a rock texting his friends. So do not think I have the truck driver as an assistant who I can hand my items to and set them on the ground. It will not work that way. Keep in mind that drivers are paid for a certain amount of time at each stop. There is an additional fee for any overage. Now, this fee is charged to the company that you purchased from. And if this happens, the company could refuse to ship to you, especially if it becomes a constant problem that you create for them. So be quick and just respect everyone's time in general. Now, here are some questions that I get asked frequently about this subject. One question is, what if the shipping terminal is too far? Now, if the original shipper does not have a shipping terminal near you, find out if your vendor would be able to ship through another shipping service. Now, you will only need to do this research once, and when locating the nearest terminal to you, you can then apply that information to all your future purchases, so you don't have to spend all that additional time every single time you make a purchase. Another question that I get a lot about this is, what if you are in a remote area? Now, if you're in a very remote area and there is just nothing close to you, which isn't common, by the way, then you would want to factor in the time to travel the distance and the fuel expenses to see what the difference between that and the shipping fees look like. And then just use your judgment as to what option would be most cost effective to your business. You're not going to want to spend 6 hours driving and 2 tanks of gas to get your inventory if it's just cheaper to have it shipped to your door. Now, this is one of the many tricks that I've personally learned, which I now share at Overstock Academy. And these are the same tricks that I use to scale my own Overstock business to the next level. And this is how you can save over $400 per shipment starting this week. So take this information and learn from my mistakes. Now, I truly hope that this was helpful to you and your business. If it was, please share it so we can both help someone else. Remember, it takes a wise person to learn from their mistakes, but an even wiser person to learn from the mistakes of others. Now, I'm not afraid to share my mistakes with you because I've been in your shoes. I've already ran the same race you're in, and I have the calluses and the bruises to prove it. I'm not here to simply talk the talk. I have walked the walk, and you can do this. Believe in yourself and honor your effort, because I absolutely do. Now, before we wrap up today's episode, let's go ahead and take a couple of questions that listeners have sent in the previous couple of weeks. I have a question from Latoya B. She says, I just started out on January 5th. I have 51 listings going so far. How do I stop second guessing my pricing? Great question, Latoya, and congratulations for getting started. So since I'm not too sure where you're sourcing your products for resale, I'm going to answer based on my own experience. What I did was this. Now, before I bought a wholesale lot, I checked to make sure that I would at least triple my money. Next, I would list the items, and I would always make sure that I was the lowest price compared to my competition, even if it was just by a few cents. Then I would check regularly to make sure I was still the lowest, and I would adjust as needed. Now, as long as I could check off all these points, I could trust my pricing. This, plus the tactics I shared in episode 8, helped me sell and sell fast. So please feel free to go back and watch that episode as well. Brian L. sent in a question previously and asked, so I am curious how international shipping works. I thought about starting out slow with just doing Canada and Australia. Any advice on shipping internationally would be great. Now, if you've been listening for a while, you've heard me say that some of my most loyal repeat customers were overseas buyers. They had almost no complaints, paid on time, and left amazing feedback. In episode 107, I believe, I share a swipe file with my shipping disclaimer that you can use. However, not all countries are the same. There are some countries that are prone to scams and ripoffs, so you're right to tread carefully. The thing to remember is that when you are shipping overseas is this. Only ship to countries where you can track the item all the way to its recipient. Now, most countries do this. Some countries provide tracking only until the item reaches customs. And you want to avoid those countries. And it's pretty easy online to figure out which ones do. So, Brian, feel free to review episode 107 and check out the episode notes. I share some international shipping tips there, plus a case study of a workaround that I came up with. So that'll be all that we have time for on this week's episode. I truly hope this show was beneficial to you. If it was, please feel free to share it. There's definitely plenty of profits to go around. And also, if you would like to make sure that you don't miss any episodes, please feel free to subscribe and leave us a review. If you have any questions, please feel free to send them in and we'll get them answered for you. My email address is amy@overstockacademy.com. Also note, for the benefit of other listeners, your question may be read out and answered in an upcoming show. So again, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I hope to see you again in the next episode.